Stuart, discussions are ongoing to enter Rangers B into the Lowland League. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, certainly. I'd love to, Nick, because there's been a lot said over the last few months about B teams, which has been false, frankly. There's been a lot of nonsense talked about it recently. We've been frustrated at the lack of transition pathway for our young players. You'll hear Ross and Craig talk about this as well. But this is something we've spent a lot of time on. After all the nonsense that happened last summer, with the end of the league, we undertook to consult with every club in the SPFL. Only 3 clubs didn't meet us, and they were lower league clubs. But we had good discussions. Ross Wilson, myself, Craig Mulholland, Andrew Dixon, Craig Robertson. We managed to get around every single club apart from those 3, just to understand what their frustrations were with the game at the moment. What would they like to see change? And we presented them with a paper which talked about various things that we could do to make the game better. And that's what it was all about. It was about making the game better and improving the youth development, improving player development. How can Scottish football have better players? And part of that is for the bigger clubs to have B teams, so that we're in control of our players' own destiny. And it's not a case of us lending players to 10, 12, 14 clubs, as we've had to do this season. We feel that works for us, but we recognised that it wasn't a one-size-fits-all model, and that other clubs would work better in other ways. And actually, it was Ian McMahon at Stenhousemuir who'd come up with the idea of the strategic partnerships. And Stenhousemuir and Hibs have actually had one this year, and it seems to have worked very well. And we looked at that, we explored it, we debated it with some of the clubs, with some great ideas from some of the clubs. And we then rewrote the paper. Craig and Ross pulled the paper together, presented it to the PGB as a proposal. And we felt that with everything that had happened over, from COVID, as a result of COVID, we felt this would have been a great time to actually make some changes to the game. And let's come out of COVID on a front foot. Let's really go and make a change to the game that would improve the quality of the players that Scottish football is developing. We hit frustration after frustration after frustration in that process. We went through the PGB, of which I'm a member, and it was approved at PGB. It went through the SPFL board, and it was approved at the SPFL board. It then got to the SFA board and it slowed down. And we then get told, because we wanted it to be implemented for next year, we knew it would still need a vote, and we knew there would need to be presentations made to the club. But one of my biggest frustrations, having spent a year on this project, is that paper has still never gone to the clubs. The SPFL clubs have still never been presented with that paper. Despite us saying, well, let's make it an SFA idea, let's make it an SPFL idea, let's not make it a Rangers and Celtic idea, let's get it out there and let the clubs see it. It's not been given to the clubs, and you need to ask the SFA and the SPFL why they haven't actually sent that paper to the clubs.
We are really pleased and thankful that George Fraser, the chairman of the Lowland League, has reached out with an invitation to us to potentially consider joining the Lowland League, initially on a one-season basis. That's something that we've looked upon favourably and something that we would potentially be interested in. If, of course, the members of the Lowland League, if that was something that they wanted to embrace as well. We want to test our players in different scenarios. Playing within the Lowland League would provide a completely different football test for the guys, for the young players, as well as a best v best games programme that we would continue to operate on top of that as well against some of the best teams in Europe as well, with a real mixed challenge for our young players. But we want to aid that transition. We feel Scottish football needs to do something for that, and we're thankful that the Lowland League have stepped forward when maybe others haven't.
You mentioned frustrations there. Can you maybe elaborate a bit more on some of them?
Yeah, I think just this is a concept that is clearly to our benefit, and we've been really, really open about that, albeit we built a plan that included benefits for many other people as well, in our opinion, as well as respecting that other people might have alternative views or different views that we also need to embrace and listen to, and we will do. And there may be some other opportunities or strategies that other people have got in mind that can position player development much further up the agenda here in Scotland. However, the frustration probably comes in 2 ways. One, we haven't really seen any progress at all on some of the things that we think are to the betterment of Scottish football and player development in particular. Those things are steeped in data and research. They're not something that we've just plucked out of thin air. They are concepts that have worked in other countries. So all of that's probably the first frustration. And the second one is, although our plans haven't moved forward. We've also not saw any other plans come forward from anybody else or from the top of the Scottish game with an alternative view. And both of those things together, I think frustration's the right word.
We believe we're the only country in Europe not to have a pathway for our 17-year-olds to 21-year-olds. So if you imagine in Scotland at the moment, we've got an under-18 team and there's nothing until you get to men's first team football. That's unacceptable. And what's happened here is George Fraser from the Lowland League, who was the chairman, he was on the Football Innovation Working Group, and he's come up with a solution, which is terrific, that perhaps allows us to go into the Lowland League for 1 year and fill that gap that exists at the moment between academy football and first team football. And we're excited about the talks that have taken place so far.
And from here, how do you envisage the process working?
Well, I think first and foremost, the Lowland League's a members' organisation, and what we had to do is make sure there's benefit there for the Lowland League as well. So yeah, we're really open about the fact that it benefits Rangers, and we think it will benefit some of Scotland's best young talent, but importantly, there really has to be benefit for the Lowland League. So if we look at the model, it's a 1 year model, which means there's no promotion or relegation. So if you're a Lowland League team who's got aspirations to get into the SPFL, even if, and I don't think this would happen, even if we win the league, then the next place team would go into the SPFL playoff. So nothing changes there. There's nothing detrimental for any Lowland League club. But what we hope to do is bring a fan base to the league. We hope to bring perhaps a sponsor to the league. We hope to make it a broadcast deal out of our involvement. And I think importantly for the Lowland League, we're committed to supporting them with the authenticity of the pyramid. We've had frustrations with the SPFL and the SFA in terms of pushing the innovation of the B team, the strategic partnerships and everything that's contained within the football innovation paper. I think for the Lowland League, they've had frustrations often that the pathway to SPFL football for aspirational clubs and ambitious clubs has also been closed. So I think what we want to mutually do here is in this 1 year pilot, shine a light on the ambition and the aspiration of some of the really progressive clubs that exist in the Lowland League, bring real financial benefit as we come out of a pandemic to some of their clubs, but at the same time, from our point of view, make sure that our young players are in a really competitive environment to go and develop, hopefully pushing towards the implementation of the innovation paper in 22-23. I think one of the issues is that if you look at Croatia as an example, a population similar to Scotland who've reached the World Cup final, and I think it was 67% of their squad who played in that World Cup final or were involved in the squad had come through B teams in their country. And it wasn't lots of B teams, it was only from 3 of their major clubs, because they established as the route from the academy to first team could be challenging. So if this model works in other countries, we heard someone use a line, and this was really frustrating for us, saying, but yeah, those countries that use it are really successful countries. Well, that in itself perhaps indicates as to why we should do it. We're not saying this is the panacea to cure all ills. We're not. It needs to be part of a wider structure and a bigger model.
Our frustration is back to that governance point, and there is no innovation coming out of the authorities. You know, this is coming from us. We've actually sat and worked on this and come up with an idea going around the clubs. These kind of things should be getting led by the SPFL and the SFA, and we're just not seeing that. And if we really want to take this game forward and take our national team forward, we have to see a bit more initiative and innovation coming from the top.